I think that philosophy tends to tackle the questions that it at least appears that science cannot answer. Moral and ethical questions. Science can make things possible, such as genetic engineering, perhaps genetically engineering babies. They can make that possible through advances in technology, but scientists can't tell us whether or not we ought to do it. What scientists probably can do is find out why we have the moral responses that we do. To some extent they are innate and hardwired in us. But on the other hand, they can't tell us why it is that certain responses are actually correct. They can't justify moral positions, it seems to me. I think that it all depends on the religious claims being made. If you say, I believe there's a cosmic doodah, without being any more specific than that, then science is going to have a very hard time refuting that claim, because it's not even clear what it means. But if you say, I believe that there's a single personal God and he created the universe around about 6,000 years ago, well, now we've got some hard targets and we can shoot them down quite effectively, and everyone here, I hope, will agree, right, that there ain't no God like that. The universe is certainly much, much older than that, and we would all agree about that. I've been working in philosophy of religion recently, and I'm very interested in the question of whether or not God exists. And if I were to say to you, is there a God out there that's all powerful and all evil? You would all straight away say, well, of course not, that's ridiculous, isn't it? Who would believe in a God like that? And if I were to ask you, well, why don't you believe in a God like that? You'd probably think for a moment and say, well, there's just too much good stuff in the world, isn't there? I mean, an all-evil, all-powerful God wouldn't create love and laughter and rainbows in quite such large quantities. Clearly, abundant evidence that if there is a creator or designer behind the universe, it's not all evil. No, right. Now, if you believed in, say, an all-powerful, all-good God, which again you might not, but if you did, then you're setting up a target that can, that there are empirically observable consequences to God claims like that, in much the same way as there are empirically observable consequences to the claim that there's an all-powerful, all-evil God. The world should look a lot more evil than it does, right? Now, similarly, if there's an all-powerful, all-good God, the world should look a lot better than it is. You don't actually need to do science to establish this. This is just a common or garden empirical observation, although science can play a role in revealing, for example, that there have been hundreds of millions of years of unimaginable horror unleashed on the sentient inhabitants of this planet before we even showed up. Yeah. There really is perhaps just too much bad stuff for this to be the creation of such a God, and perhaps we ought to be able to recognise that.